Hello, my name is Stephen Janis, and I'm an investigative reporter for the Real News Network in Baltimore, Maryland. It's an apparent problem with accountability and lack thereof that seem to produce a new scandal weekly in the city of Baltimore. This time, the Baltimore Housing Authority is now under intense scrutiny after 11 women filed a federal lawsuit alleging maintenance workers there demanded sex in exchange for repairs at the city's troubled Gilmore Homes housing project, where not incidentally Freddie Gray was arrested. But those allegations are just part of the problem. That's because the lawsuit claims that not just the victims, but a small group of housing employees brought evidence of the scheme to the attentions of top officials in the department to no avail. And in fact, those same employees suffered retaliation themselves. Today, we have one of those whistleblowers with us, a man who is facing pressure to sign a document he says compromises his rights in order to get his job back. Lucky Crosby is a 14-year veteran of the City Housing Authority and an elected union official. His job was to repair and maintain apartments among the city's 11,000 low-income housing users. But 2 weeks ago, he was fired for what he claims was retaliation for investigating the claims of sex for repairs. And now his story is taking yet another twist, and many say is an example of just how broken the City Housing Authority is. So, Mr. Crosby, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me, this is a long tale. This isn't just, 1 or 2 weeks. When did your problem start with the Housing Authority and why?
Well, you can say 2007 because of the unsafe conditions that the employee was made to work in, and there seemed to be no accountability when you make reports to the supervisors, then the managers, then the asset managers.
What kind of unsafe conditions are you talking about?
You can say from the maintaining of the trucks, that some of the trucks brakes wasn't working, from the shabby equipment that we was getting and some equipment we wasn't getting, from the safety boots to the uniforms, to i.e. everything involving us going into these filthy units with all kind of rodents, mice, and everything in it, and from dealing with old, let's say like refrigerators and stoves that should have been replaced, but housing refused to replace them because of cost-effective measures, dealing with the unsafe windows where some units, the windows would not open properly without locks and latches and pulleys and balances in them.
Wow, so this was just pure, and when you would file, reports, what would happen?
Oh, I get disciplined.
You get disciplined?
Yes, told that I'm a troublemaker, shut up, or you're gonna lose your job, or they assign me somewhere, transfer me somewhere, put me on crappy details.
All right, so fast forward to 2 weeks ago, you're coming to work, you have investigated these claims. Now, first of all, tell us what you found at Gilmore Homes with your, when you, the union, looked into the problem.
Well, sir, first of all, I must give a disclaimer.
Okay.
I am a homeowner and a resident of Sandtown, Winchester.
Okay.
You can look out my back door and see Gilmore Home, Presser Court to be exact.
Okay.
So I was aware of that communities like Community United within the Gilmore Homes doing their own investigation. And then I was also made aware that certain things was being said. But on this particular day, it was happened to be July the 30th. I received several phone calls from members of the maintenance staff of Gilmore Homes asking me, did I see the article in the Afro? I said, yes, I did. Then at 5:42, I received a phone call from Sean Buchanan, Deputy Associate Director of Baltimore City Housing Authority. He informed me that we could not have our scheduled meeting for the 31st because he'll be going to Gilmore. And I said, interested, I'll be going to Gilmore too to investigate for a health and safety matter, the sex for maintenance work. He said, oh, no. I'm there to discuss the lack of productivity. I say, well, I will be there for the health and safety. He paused like he didn't want me there. So we got off the phone. So I then called Mr. Anthony Coates, who is Local 647 president. Anthony Coates told me to start investigating. I then went around 7 o'clock in the evening to Gilmore Homes, where I started speaking to tenants. And my question was, do maintenance come to repair your work orders in a timely manner? It was a resounding no. So then the follow-up question was, I said, did any maintenance man in a blue uniform, did they say anything disrespectful to you? And they say, what you mean by disrespectful? I say, in a sexual nature. And they came out with the stories about what the maintenance supervisor said to them, asked to them, and were trying to force them to do.
So then what did you do with it?
July the 31st. I then called, because I was at Allendale, a high-rise development. July the 31st around 11 a.m., I then called Carla Walton, the chief of human resources, around 11 a.m. I explained to her why I'm needed to go to Gilmore, i.e. because of what the residents are saying that maintenance are doing. The maintenance employees fall under 647. As the chief shop steward and safety officer, it was my duty to be at there to investigate. She then told me, well, let me explain what I told her. I told her what I had heard from the residents in that evening investigation, the conditions that I noticed at 7 o'clock in the evening, told her about it. She told me she will be getting back to me so I can get released. She said, I got to call Sean Buchanan and see if Sean Buchanan going to talk about the sex for work. And I said, that doesn't make sense. I said, you need to let me know because I'm catching public transportation there, so I need you to let me know by 2:15. She then called me back at 2:41 on July the 31st. But Sean Buchanan had left the room, and he called her and told her I was there. The whole plot was trying to get me out the room. Then they planned on disciplining me for being at the meeting, so they told their executives there not to mention anything about the sex stuff at Gilmore.
Right.
Subsequently, I was suspended. I was suspended on August the 6th, August the 6th, August the 5th, and 6th for going to Gilmore. I have the suspension letter.
Right. So you were just trying to investigate what you thought was an issue, and then it turned out that really was a serious issue with the federal lawsuit that was filed. So one thing interesting you told me was that there is fraternization between housing employees and women at other housing projects, right?
There's always been.
How is it? What is it? How do you know this?
Because I have been here long enough to know that. Because there are women involved in relationships with men. There are men involved in relationship with women. Some of the men and women work for the Baltimore City Housing Authority.
Right. So it's not totally abnormal. So that was something.
Not totally abnormal at all. If you go to 417, and you will see that there are employees at 417 that have babies by public housing residents.
Okay. So fast forward to the lawsuit comes out. Obviously this becomes a big issue.
Well,
go ahead.
Right. According to the contract, which I have a copy of, we have a monthly labor management meeting with the housing authority executives. When I mean executive, everybody except Gragiano. So you go from the chief of staff to the deputy commissioner to the associate deputy commissioner to the chief of human resource to the deputy chief of human resource. In early August, we, the union, brought up all the concerns about Gilmore, including what I have found out from residents. I offered to go with Carla Walton, the chief of human resources, to introduce her to some of these women so they can hear these stories. I offered to show her these deplorable conditions at Gilmore in front of Kimberly Washington, in front of Nick Carlace, in front of Sean Buchanan. And I was rebuffed.
So they said they don't want to hear about this.
I quote, Carla Walton says she don't deal in hearsay.
Okay. So at that point, they weren't taking this seriously. Now, fast forward to the lawsuit, and it gets a lot of publicity, and people seem to be taking it seriously. But then what happens to you? You get fired. What happened?
Well, they fired me for, they said, workplace violence. I'm still confused. What happened was October the 5th, I got into a altercation argument, no physical, nothing physical, nobody would touch, over a mud pan, over the cleaning of a mud pan. So as the safety officer, I was telling in the supervisor office, telling the supervisor, I used indicative language to point out how unsafe these two employees was. That's all happened.
And then, so what happens 2 weeks later? They say they're
actually, October the 7th, I was suspended. I was called down to 417 East Fair Street, where I was told on 3 different occasions by Gertrude Porter, the deputy assistant human resource manager, that this was not a disciplinary action. So I went thinking they're gonna ask me, finally take my statement, because nobody interviewed me about Gilmore to this day. I thought they were gonna take my statement about Gilmore. She started saying, you got anything you wanna tell me? You got anything you wanna tell me? I was like, no, not really, what's going on? So she finally mentioned that there was a charge brought against me by a fellow employee. By the way, both of us is under 647. This should have been a union issue, not even went to human resources.
Right, so the union should, yeah, okay.
Right, so I said, What you mean? You talking about Timothy Edwards and what happened October the 5th? So I explained to her that I use language, indicative language, to express my frustration about this member putting residents and staff members in harm's way. Simple, like I have done over 100 times at the Housing Authority of Baltimore City.
And so you were fired.
Right.
So was this retaliation? I mean, bottom line, was this retaliation
Yes,
for your Gilmore Homes?
Right. Let me just explain.
Yeah.
On the 7th, when I was first suspended, I was escorted out of 417 by armed guards. I have handled hundreds of hearings. I have never seen a member escorted out by armed guards through the lobby. Embarrassed me.
Was it security guards or police officers?
These were armed security guards that monitor high-rise buildings.
Wow, you were escorted out.
Yes.
So how did you feel?
I was humiliated. I'm now taking anxiety medicine and sleep medicine because I have nightmares of Carla Walton instructing the officer to shoot me. And in light of what's going on around America with African-American unarmed men being shot by law enforcement, how stupid and insensitive this could be.
So 2 weeks later, though, you get rehired. What happened?
No, 2 weeks, October the 22nd, they tape a termination letter on the front door of my house. They taped it on the front door of my house to humiliate me once again. So, again, I had already put in like grievances for my grievance hearing, which I have not had yet. So then I was terminated. So fast forward, I received a call from Mr. Anthony Coates, the Ask Me Local 647 president, on Saturday, telling me that he'd been suspended for harassment and discrimination. So that was Saturday. Friday, they had a hearing. When I say they, Paul Graziano, Kimberly Washington, Carla Walton, Sean Buchanan, Anthony Scott, Nick Carlay, with Anthony Coates, George Geeson, Ryan Byers, Nathan Burrell.
So they have a hearing to do what?
To reinstate Mr. Coates.
Oh, okay.
Because no president in the history of Ask Me ever been suspended for something that's trivial we did. So to reinstate Mr. Coates, and Mr. Militant went in there, and Mr. Militant said that Mr. Crosby got to be reinstated too. He's a whistleblower, and I'm going to call the feds on you. That's what he told Paul Graziano. So then Glenn Middleton and George Geeson comes out. I'm waiting in the parking lot for Mr. Coates. They come out and tell me that I've been reinstated. And they did say that they want me to sign a paper saying something about a 45-day gag order, saying something about I got to go back on probation for 45 days. And Glenn Middleton say, we're going to get you all your back pay. So I instruct union members, the key thing is to get your job back. We can grieve all the rest of it. So I accepted that verbally with Mr. Middleton and Mr. Geeson. Then I was told to go down to 417 and get the paperwork. When we got to 417, what would be Tuesday, myself and Anthony Coates, the union president, there was no paperwork. Then they say, go to Ask Me Council 67, located 1410 Bush Street, to get the paperwork. I thought that was strange myself. Then as I'm waiting in Glenn Middleton Executive Secretary office, they said they have the paper for me to sign. She presented me with this, what I presented you with, a settlement agreement.
Right, which outlines, that you have to give up, you're not going to get your back pay.
Basically, they are telling me to give up all my rights to file grievances related to my termination and suspension, that I'll be moved to a non-family development or high-rise to keep me from reporting on the deplorable conditions, and to say that I will go back on probation for 45 days. No employee go back on probation for 45 days.
All right. We're going to continue this conversation with Mr. Crosby. We're going to go over, we'll talk about what's really wrong with the housing department in the light of what's happening to you.
Okay.
This is Stephen Janis reporting for the Real News Network in Baltimore.